The first signs were subtle, easy to dismiss as just a phase or a temporary mood. But as time went on, the changes in my wife's behavior became more pronounced and harder to ignore. Our once happy marriage of 31 years seemed to be crumbling right before my eyes. She was distant, less interested in spending time together. And our once passionate love life had dwindled to nothing. It was a far cry from the woman I had fallen in love with and married all those years ago. Her transformation didn't happen overnight. It started with her newfound obsession with nightclubs, which was surprising given that we had always been homebodies. She began going out with her friends more frequently, returning home in the wee hours of the morning, often too tired to talk about her night out as a paramedic. My job required me to work long hours including weekends and be ready to answer emergency calls at a moment. Notice, this meant that we had even less time to spend together, which only seemed to exacerbate the growing distance between us during the day. She worked part-time at a department store, having retired from the US Postal Service. But when she wasn't at work, she seemed to be always doing something with her friends, leaving me feeling more and more like an outsider in my own marriage. It hurt to see her pulling away. But I didn't know what to do to bridge the gap that was forming between us. Our conversations became more superficial and she even told me once that I was boring that stone. But I still tried to understand and support her need for independence and new experiences. As the months went by, the changes in her behavior only seemed to worsen. The intimacy we once shared vanished and she began rejecting my advances. I tried to talk to her about what was happening, but she would brush off my concerns, making me feel like I was overreacting. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong and I knew I had to get to the bottom of it. It wasn't in my nature to invade our privacy, but I was desperate for answers. I made the difficult decision to hire a private investigator to find out what was really going on. Little did I know that the truth would be far more devastating than I could have ever imagined. As the private investigator began his work, I anxiously awaited any news about my wife's activities. I tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy in our lives. But the uncertainty was eating away at me. I couldn't help but wonder what secrets she might be hiding and whether our marriage could survive the truth. The investigator was thorough and efficient, keeping me updated on his progress. The more he discovered, the more I realized that the woman I had loved for over 3 decades was living a double life. She had crafted an entirely separate world, one in which I had no place. It turned out that her friends were just a cover for the multiple men she was seeing behind my back. My heart sank as the investigator showed me photos and videos of my wife with these other men, laughing, flirting and behaving in ways I had never thought possible. The evidence was overwhelming. There was no denying that my wife had been cheating on me for the past 10 years. I mean, she had men coming out of her pockets, felt like I had been punched in the stomach. The pain of her betrayal was unbearable and the thought of her with these other men made me physically sick. The private investigator revealed that she had slept with at least 6 different men during her secret escapades, sometimes even seeing 2 of them in a single day before coming home to me. As I watched the footage of her with these men, my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. She was laughing and enjoying herself, completely oblivious to the pain she was causing me. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had spent more than half my life with, was a stranger to me. Now, her infidelity went beyond just emotional and physical betrayal. She had engaged in risky behavior such as having sex in a car with one of her lovers and meeting up with additional men and making out with them as well. The depths of her deception were staggering, and the fact that it took the private investigator just 7 days to gather all this evidence made it clear that her cheating had become a regular part of her life. As I struggled to come to terms with the reality of my wife's betrayal, I knew that I couldn't continue living like this. I had to take action and reclaim control of my life. It was time to put an end to our marriage and confront the consequences of her actions. The shock and devastation of my wife's infidelity left me reeling. But I knew that I couldn't let her betrayal control my life any longer. I decided to fight back and take control of my own destiny. I gathered all the evidence a private investment investigator had provided and took it to a divorce attorney determined to end our marriage on the grounds of infidelity. The attorney was sympathetic to my situation and assured me that we would do everything in our power to ensure that I received a fair settlement. I wanted to go after everything I could. Her retirement, the house, and anything else that might bring some semblance of justice for the years of deception she had inflicted on me while the attorney began the process of filing for divorce. I made a bold decision. I moved out of the house when my wife was at work, leaving no trace of my presence behind. I wanted a clean break, and I wanted her to feel the full weight of the consequences of her actions. I knew that it would be painful, but it was the only way for me to move forward and heal from the heartache she had caused when she was served with the divorce papers at her job. She went ballistic. Her carefully crafted double life was unraveling before her eyes, and she couldn't handle the consequences. She bombarded me with call and text messages, but I refused to engage with her. I had made my decision, and there was no turning back during the divorce hearing. The judge ordered the sale of our house and the division of the proceeds. Each of us would receive $100,000 of small consolation for the years of deception and betrayal. The judge also ruled that she would have to pay me alimony in the amount of $600 per month for 8 years, as she made more money than me due to her U.S. Postal retirement in her manager position at the department store. As the final details of our divorce were being settled, my ex-wife and I didn't exchange a single word. Our lives were now permanently divided, and there was nothing left to say. The heartache and betrayal had driven an irreparable wedge between us. And the only thing left was for each of us to try and rebuild our lives separately with the divorce finalized and the financial aspects settled. I faced the daunting task of rebuilding my life as a single man in my mid-50s. It was a challenge I never expected to face, but I was determined to make the most of it. I used the money from the sale of our house to purchase a new home, a fresh start in a different neighborhood free from the memories of my failed marriage. I slowly began the process of adjusting to my new reality, finding peace in the fact that I was no longer living a lie. I focused on my work as a paramedic, channeling my energy into helping others and finding purpose in my chosen profession. The long hours and weekend shifts provided a much-needed distraction from the lingering pain of betrayal. I also took the time to reevaluate my priorities and rediscover the things that brought me joy. I started traveling more. When I had the opportunity, I started participating in local clubs and events, meeting new people and expanding my social circle. I even began exploring new hobbies like bowling and hiking. As the months passed, the pain of my ex-wife's betrayal began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of self-confidence and independence. I was learning to live life on my own terms without the burden of a deceitful partner holding me back. I started to truly enjoy my newfound freedom, embracing the opportunity to chart my own course and make decisions based solely on my own needs and desires. Despite my progress, the emotional scars left by my ex-wife's infidelity still lingered. The thought of trusting another woman in a romantic relationship seemed impossible. And I made the decision that I would never make again. I couldn't fathom risking my heart and my future on the chance that another person might betray me in the same way. But even with this resolution, I refused to let my past dictate my future happiness. I continued to embrace the opportunities that life presented, determined to make the most of every day and find joy in the simple pleasures that life had to offer. My journey of healing was far from over. But I was well on my way to building a new fulfilling life free from the shadow of my wife's